Hi, this is Ted Kelly with another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Hey, we've got a great guest on today. His name's Sheldon Early with Early Technologies and Services. He's going to come on and talk to us a little bit about his background and the services that they offer over there. I know he's a budding entrepreneur. He's always doing something. I love talking to this guy. He's always out of the box. So, hey, Sheldon, welcome aboard.
Ted, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to speak to you and your visitors.
So tell us a little bit about you, your background, and all the different things that you guys do over at Early Technologies and Services.
Well, that's a very daunting question I need to answer. So basically, I guess in a grand scheme of things, I have an electrical engineering background. I graduated from Southern University at Baton Rouge, but I've always had an interest in aviation. So my career is always centered around aviation. Spent the early years supporting the Marine Corps, flying around the world, working on helicopters. Spent the next half of my life career working on drones and converting jets to drones. And then I came down to Greenville, South Carolina, where I became employed by Stevens Aviation and picked up this area of business development where I helped to secure a number of large contracts for them. After doing that for 7 years, decided to go out on my own. I've been on my own now for about 18 years. My company primarily provides consulting services to aviation companies in the pursuit of government contracts, also to commercial and corporate operators of aircraft. We've had a company that we sold a couple of years ago where we modified airplanes, do special missions, governments all over the world. Today, I guess I would say that my primary focus is on the personal charter business and the air cargo business. And of course, like you said, I have legs and other interests that are outside aviation, but right today, let's talk about aviation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know every time we get to catch up, it's always interesting to hear some of the topics that we end up landing on and talking about the opportunities there. So specifically, we talk about the aviation business and the private charter business. I know, given the current state of things with the pandemic and folks trying to social distance, I would think that the private charter business might be a great place for folks to think about how to optimize a couple things. One, minimize the risks of being in an open environment with a bunch of folks in an airport, but also I could see them thinking about ways to get the property that they need to visit and possibly, kind of get more done in a day than they typically would. Is that a true statement?
Well, you're absolutely correct, Ted. Unfortunately, like everybody else, though, we did feel, the hit that came with COVID-19, and because basically people weren't traveling because businesses were closed. But for those people who did travel, it was definitely a more convenient way, a safer, more secure. All our airplanes are sanitized, our pilots are tested on a regular basis. So we make sure it's a safe environment. But like you said, it's not going through a main terminal when you're flying. It's going to a smaller terminal at an FBO, boarding an airplane where it's you and the pilot and just your guests, hopefully in your bubble. So it's a lot more secure. But what I will tell you is this, is that, what we're anticipating and what we're seeing already is that people are starting to feel good about where we're moving in terms of the vaccination. And if the vaccine comes out like we expect, I think you'll see people starting to travel a whole lot more. I spent all day yesterday, investigating a new air taxi company that we're hoping to be able to launch here in this area in the next month. We had an air taxi company a couple of years back. It worked out very well. There were some things that happened that weren't in our control, but in this situation, we know now more. But what we do know is that when people can travel, all the revenue they've been saving because they couldn't go, all the customers they haven't had contact with because they couldn't go, that's going to be on the forefront of their thoughts as soon as things open up. And so we're poised and ready to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I think they would be able to get a lot more done in a day using your service as opposed to going through strict commercial airports anyway, right?
Right. So let's just as an example, you could take a small airplane like a Cirrus SR-22 or Vision Jet or Baron, which is economically very feasible for most people. And I can take a guy who might have businesses in Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and maybe even Macon, Georgia, as an example, and I could take them to all three of those locations in the same day and get them back home that evening. I mean, and whereas if they were driving, they might make 2 of those stops.
Yeah.
But in this case, they can make all the stops and be home in the same day. And as you get larger equipment, you know, in terms of the aircraft itself, you can stretch out a little bit further and still be able to attain the same thing. So that's the whole intent of air travel, is to use it to the advantage of giving you time back to do the thing that you need to be doing. And that's spending more time engaging your customer or being engaged with your employees.
Yeah, that is awesome. I never thought about it quite like that. I guess I'm so used to the commercial mindset of, you know, being able to get to one place in one day, spending the night, and then having to figure out, you know, okay, I get there, I can be back home by Friday. So that's a novel concept in itself when you start thinking about being able to touch 3 places in one day versus being in one place. So that's interesting, and I'm sure there's probably some hotel management teams, hotel executive teams that would probably benefit from being able to touch 3 places in a day versus one, right? And be home for dinner, so to speak.
Well, I can tell you this, Ted, you know, I know a number of hoteliers who own their own aircraft. And there's a reason why they own their own aircraft. And that's probably a reason why they have so many properties, because they figured it out when the others didn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, not everybody can own their own aircraft, but you can definitely charter an aircraft. And, you know, the cost of charter is a whole lot less than the cost of ownership. But, you know, take your business, for example. You know, I know that, you know, there are probably locations that you don't look at bidding on or pursuing because it's a little stretch to get away from home to do it. But if you had access to an airplane, you might look at that a little bit different, especially if you figure out a way to wrap some of that cost up in your proposal itself.
Yeah.
We've talked about, you know, having some kind of an emergency assistance program centered around using airplanes to go into an area after there's a disaster, you know, and being able to go in and do a survey and then get back to the customer and let them know what needs to happen. I mean, those are the things you can do if you got access to a company that can get you an airplane to get you close, that can get you a helicopter to fly you in, and can get a drone to go up in the air and overlook what you're doing. And that's what you want when you're looking at aviation company. You don't look to somebody who could bring those elements together to make it happen like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I don't know if anybody really pays attention to it, but you know, this season was a record number for hurricanes. And I want to say 5 or 7 of those actually hit the coast. So
That's right.
you know, a lot of your hotel owners are always going to have assets on warm water, blue water, tropical environments, because they know those are destinations that folks want to get to. So typically they're going to be at risk whenever the hurricane season kicks in. And a lot of times, you know, the local airport is not going to be functioning if a storm hits. So to your point, you know, it is good to have access to that kind of equipment, or should I say a toolbox, so to speak,
Right.
to be able to get to places and look at it and make assessments. And I don't know, you guys have access to planes that actually carry cargo. If there was a, you know what I'm saying, like a closest airport next to them, you know, you may fly in the cargo that they need to get the hotel back online so that they can be up and running. Because most times, you know, in the local city or the local environment, there's going to be a line for everything.
That's right.
You know, so you bring in your own tools and equipment so you can get your property back online sooner. So that's an interesting.
Let me give you a little background on something. So the way that I got really introduced to the cargo business was when Hurricane Maria touched down on Puerto Rico, and I received a phone call from a company that knew me because of my aviation ties, and he said, "Listen, we got a problem. We need to get some cargo down to Puerto Rico, and we need to get some people moved in and out of there." You know, at that point, I was not in the cargo business, but you know me, I said, absolutely, I can do it. And over the course of the next 3 months, we moved 2 million pounds of cargo between Miami and Puerto Rico. We probably moved somewhere around 50 to 60 people back and forth between Puerto Rico. But you know, what that also did was it opened up the opportunity to recognize there was a business in cargo for me. But I also, in that situation, and this is going to sound really weird, but in that situation, I actually hired what they call a group of guys called the Men in Black, which was a security company. And so I flew them down first, and they got themselves positioned so they could be there to provide protection for my aircraft, protection for the equipment and supplies we were bringing in. And then they worked with my customer to give them protection in distributing the materials across the island. I mean, and so, so it always helps to have this one-stop person you can go to and say, here's what my situation is, how can you help? I don't have a large team, but I have a strong, and I'll say my age, a strong Rolodex.
Right.
Bring the people together for the situation that exists. I'm gonna give you one more thing. I'm in the aviation business, but that same company, when a hurricane was hitting New Bern, North Carolina, that same company called me and said, man, we have got to get some patients out of one of our clinics in New Bern before noon tomorrow. Now they called me at 3 o'clock the day before and said, I said, well, there's not a flying opportunity there. They said, but you're our transportation guy. So what did I do? Call somebody I know. The next morning I had 10 charter buses lined up in front of the clinic, picking up all these patients and moving them out the coast. I mean, that's what it's all about for me. It's all about how do I come up with the right solution for the problem that somebody has, be it transportation or be it anything else they might be experiencing. That's why you and I talk so much. We're always talking about, hey, Ted, did you think about this? Hey, I think do this, Ted. And oh, by the way, I got an airplane. I can get the helicopter. I can get the drone. Let's go make it happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we get to have some great conversations, and they're always out the box. Whenever I'm talking with you, it's thinking out the box. So I definitely enjoy talking with you. So Sheldon, do this. If folks want to find you, how do they get you if they want to take advantage of your services?
Yeah, well, I'm not a big visible guy on the internet, but always LinkedIn, Sheldon Early. Or at my email address is searly@earlyts.com, earlytangosierra.com. But most anybody in aviation in and around the Greenville area for sure, if you just ask them, they'll know who I am and they'll be able to find me. There's only 1 degree of separation in the world we live today. Just somebody, they'll find me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I need to keep that in the back of my head about your services, because that's a nice weapon to have, to be able to circumvent disaster situations and already have kind of the assembled process behind how you can get things done and get something moving and back online. So that's a great point. I'm glad we touched on that.
Hey, let me tell you one more thing, Ted. And you got to think about it on the other side. You want to be the last guy out sometimes because you're securing the facility. And if you can secure the facility and get out last, that's what an airplane like ours will do for you.
Good point. Great point. Didn't think about that. All right. So, hey, Sheldon, thanks again for coming on. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have you on. This has been another Ted's Hospitality Minute, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, guys. Stay safe.
All right, Ted. Thanks.